Hi, music fans. I'm Shelby Morrison, Director of Artist Relations at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I have the very distinct honor of spending some time with a special guest today. And by way of an intro, I'm just going to give Yola some flowers here. Um, Welcome, Yola. Welcome.
Right.
Um, you recently made your acting debut, playing Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Sister Rosetta Tharpe in Baz Luhrmann's Elvis movie, which is now Oscar nominated. You recently joined the Recording Academy's Black Music Collective Leadership Council alongside her and Mickey Guyton. You made your award show performance debut on the American Music Awards back in November as their featured Song of the Soul performer. You became an American Music Award winner when the Elvis movie soundtrack won the Favorite Soundtrack Award. You were recently nominated for the NAACP Image Award in the category of Outstanding Breakthrough Performance in a Motion Picture for your portrayal of Sister Rosetta Tharpe in the Elvis movie. And then in November, you were nominated for your 7th Grammy. That's
Yes.
amazing. And this is just what you've been doing lately. So you're quite busy. You're quite busy. But what I really would love to do, let's talk about Sister Rosetta Tharpe. She is a pioneer
Yes.
of rock and roll before Chuck Berry, before Little Richard, before Buddy Holly, any of them. But yet, until recently, people had never even heard of her. You know, why do you think people have never heard of her until recently?
I feel like her being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame helped with that for sure. Like, it's an iconic thing to have your name in the hallowed halls. So that was something that I think was helpful. And people also, they find it like the narrative wasn't really there. Like the time that she was creating rock and roll music was a time that we don't even really associate with the creation of rock and roll music because of, I suppose, just the way that music was at that time, the way patriarchy was at that time. We don't think of women as being a genesis of the genre. But she was like brought up in the church, obviously, and I think a lot of her stuff was classed as gospel, even though it was rock and roll, because rock and roll didn't exist yet. she hadn't finished creating it yet. It's hard to be classified as a thing that doesn't exist. And so I think that can happen a lot. Like people create things and then the people that they influence or discover then become the people that are defined under that genre, even though they weren't the people that created it. And a perfect example of that is Little Richard, because she discovered him when he was 14 years old in Macon, Georgia. She was sound checking and he was singing along. And she was like, this kid, are you kidding me? And took him under her wing. And she was a queer woman as well. And so, like, it makes more sense that in, I suppose, the 40s when she's doing it and growing up and figuring out the dynamic, and then Little Richard in the 50s, it makes sense that a kid that is struggling with his sexuality would find safe harbor with a queer woman in the 50s. When we can already guess it's probably not the most comforting thing to have to endure this kind of, reckoning with yourself. And so it also explains a lot of things. It explains why Little Richard was able to be the way that he was, so bombastic. And while there's so much queerness in the aesthetic of classic rock and roll, like it stands out, it's everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, like I think there are a lot of reasons why, like she hasn't been known until now. But, being Black and a woman and creating something is the holy trinity of being ignored. So it transpires.
Well, I think that's one reason why you are so important now, because you're able to bridge that gap. I mean, like you said, just being a woman, one thing, like that's back in the 40s and 50s, that in and of itself is, you're disqualified from anything where you would be recognized. Mm-hmm. And she's so important. I know so not only as a as a performer, but as a guitar player. She started it all. And you're a guitar player.
Yeah,
And
I am. I don't normally play like her, but I had to learn a bit. Yeah.
yeah, and I read a story about, or watched an interview rather, about you talking about how you were discouraged from even picking up a guitar.
Oh
And
yeah.
so what is that? What happened there? And that just sounds like
Ridiculous, right?
ridiculous. Hmm.
Yeah. Lo and behold, yet again, my lady parts get in the way of this idea of being listened to or respected in any kind of way. But then also it was the other kind of, so first it was like just standard garden variety sexism. And then like there's also then the other part that stands behind any prejudice, which is intimidation. people aren't bothered with people that aren't a threat.
Right. Oh
You
my
know,
God,
they don't want
right.
to limit someone who isn't a threat. But if, you know, in situations where I'm being creative, I'm writing the lyrics and the melody, and other people in the situation don't have that skill set. They only have the chords to be on the writing. So if I even get as far as picking up a guitar and playing a C and D G chord, like there are some of the most famous songs that we know that literally have like 4 chords in.
Right. Right.
And so, yeah, like for a while, like it was a working mission for some people that I was creative with to keep me away from the guitar so that I wouldn't have all of the royalties.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
know, or at least all the power, even if I was going to share the royalties, like I
Right.
would have the power and the kind of that credence of being my own person. And I think that's something that just, it's a narrative that carries on whenever you're in a situation where the person needs desperately to be the center of power, the power structure.
Hmm.
They'll want to keep you at arm's length
Yeah.
from having creative freedom and to be able to just conceive of whatever you want to conceive of. And so that's what the guitar is to me. The guitar to me is creative freedom. It's that moment where I have an idea that bumps and jumps into my head, and by and large, I write by accident. It literally just arrives like that.
I was
That's
going to
my,
ask you how does where does the inspiration come from when you write?
well, I like, so to be really sciencey about it, essentially I tested this theory during the pandemic because I noticed that the nature of like my ideas, they just ranged in like aesthetic and quality. And I wanted to kind of, I always noticed that the ones that just coalesced naturally and jumped into my head were the most elegantly constructed. So I was like, how do I replicate that? Because that's what I want. So I spent time, I noticed that every time I came up with that or those ideas, I was bored out of my mind. And I was doing something really menial, like vacuum cleaning or washing up, or, you know, just something really, or just watching TV. And I had like having a guitar on my lap like this, but like not paying attention to what I was playing, like
Hmm.
definitely watching the thing and just like, I'm bored, I'm trying to give myself as many bits of stimulus as possible, you know, so here I am. Da, 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 da.
It's like you're keeping
And
one side of your brain busy so the other side can do what it needs to do.
yeah, well, it transpired, it was very motor function based. And so as long as I was in like the use of my motor function, I was kind of near the part of my brain that collects all this random information, the colliculi. And all of that stuff, like everything you've ever experienced in life, everything you've ever been, any environment you've ever been in, and of course, the environment, the part of the brain that every marketer is trying to get to, FYI, it's your peripheral vision. That like you collect your peripheral vision. Anyway, you collect a lot of information. You make a lot of elegant connections to things because that's what helps you shape your understanding of the world, of the planet. And so, yeah, like I noticed when I was in my motor function that all those elegant connections would occur. So I kept on going into doing menial motor functioning things. Physicists will do the same thing to solve problems sometimes. And so that was there's actually a famous Big Bang Theory episode where Sheldon goes and works in a kitchen because he's trying to solve something, and he finally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that one.
You right?
Yes. Yes.
So same
Oh, wow.
idea. Basically.
Yes.
I'm Sheldoning.
You're Yola. You are
Yeah,
Yola.
I'm
Yeah.
Yolaing hard, and
Yes.
but that's my process. I get bored, so it's very hard to do it on the road because the road is exciting. So like I have to be home and I have to be bored, and then once I get to a level of boredom, then all of these ideas start coalescing. Sometimes they're complete, sometimes they're partials, but whatever they are, I'll then either be like, oh, this is kind of finished, okay? Or I'll take it to somebody and I'll be like, this is a partial that I think has something. Can you help me finish it? And so, yeah, both ways happen.
Wow, that is absolutely fascinating. That is amazing. And in the movie, in the Elvis movie where you portrayed Sister Rosetta, you played the guitar. You
Yeah,
learned how to play like her. And I read that it took you many, many hours. And, what was that process like? And also, as a follow-up question, has it changed the way you play guitar now, your own style?
So here's the deal. It takes a lot of work. It took, I don't know, like when I was locked into quarantine for 14 days as you had to be able to get to Australia in the first place. And I probably spent 8 hours a day playing. And before that, like over, because
8 hours?
yeah, like I would be like on and off for 8 hours. Like I'll take a break.
You have
But
to do like hand exercises?
like I can sing all the solos because I had to be able to like refer what I was doing. And so yeah, like I started off with like some lessons because I'm a rhythm player. I'm not a lead player. Sister Rosetta Tharpe's very much a lead player. And so yeah, I started like we tracked the vocals in 19 and I kind of found out that I had like the part later. And from that point onwards, it was like, I'm going to be practicing. And so I practiced for, almost a year and of just these solos. And it's really hard, guys. And you've got to keep it up. And it's like anyone that's a violin player, they'll know that like you've got to keep your intonation like really tight. But even with like muscle, even with fretted necks, you've got so much muscle memory that you've got to keep going. So the upside is that with my rhythm playing now, like I'm not remotely thinking about what my hand's doing, or I'm not, my movement is maybe more silky as a result of it. I'm not a lead player. I'm just gonna tell you kids right now, it's not happening. They don't pay you per note, babe.
They don't?
They
Oh,
don't.
man.
They don't pay you per note. It's not how it works, love. And like, it's so much bloody. It's a lot of work. And like, I was like, I'm really glad I did this because like there'll be things that I'll be able to do now that I wasn't able to do before. I'll be able to be more dexterous in my rhythm playing if I want to be. And if I later decide I want to kind of be a solo player, I now have the tools to be able to do that. I know exactly how I got there. But like you've got to keep brushing up. You've got to be one of those people who sits with the guitar and noodles all the time. And if you've ever been in a band or anyone's been in like school band and there's like someone who's a bit of a shredder, you'll notice they never stop.
I'm not a musician myself, but I've been around. I work at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I've been around Kirk Hammett and Tom Morello and all these amazing guitar players, and that's what they do. They walk around here doing it. I mean, yeah.
You can't stop.
That's
why they don't stop.
Yeah.
So I think when you're like in a band, you're like, that's annoying. You're like, well, if you want them to play like that, they're gonna have to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, it dawned on me that like I like loads of things. I'm really good at loads of things, and so I don't quite want a tunnel vision as a person. That's not my person. I'm genre fluid for a reason.
Well, you brought me to my next question, literally, because you've coined this term, which, in my opinion, is the most important term in the future of where this music is going. You define yourself as genre fluid musically. Yeah. What does genre fluid mean?
Well, genre fluid to me, and I feel like people have tried to kind of like approach this conceptually as being, you know, just doing loads of different genres of music. But for me, that's not how fluid rolls. And so my term, like the way that I define it, is the gray area between genre, the flow between genre. So how one flows into the other, and how contemporary music comes from a common root, all the connection, the connective tissue. And so it's as much about being in another genre or moving across genre as it is finding the connective tissue. So in my work, be it a record, even a song, sometimes I'm trying to take an aesthetic journey from one place to another, maybe even diverted through another place. But I'm trying to find how two worlds, at the very least, if not more, are connected. And the mission of that, the reason why I do that, is because of what we're talking about. Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Mm-hmm. People were like, oh, I don't know what she is. I don't really pay attention to like the makeup or the etymology of music. And so by seeing the commonality in music, we can trace the roots back to where it comes from, which is inexorably Black America. And my mission is to give Black America their flowers for all the things that they gave me in a village in England, extremely isolated. Like, it was a profound lifeline. There's no other way of like describing it. And so I then dedicate my life back to that mission and going, please, know that all flowers belong to Black America. It ain't nothing to do with me.
But what you do is what the pioneers did. You're taking different genres and blending them, just like you said. And when I listen to you, I cannot pigeonhole you, even if I wanted to try, because all of your songs sound like you, but they don't sound the same. You know, I mean, it's you're nailing it. You're doing it.
That's the whole thing. Because the side product of that is that when you can't pigeonhole me, then you have to be able to pay attention to the aesthetic thing, the choice that I make on every song. And then you end up liking my choices as much as you might like my voice or any other aspect of what I'm doing. But that becomes like the important point, the USP almost, you know, like that you can't replicate. You can't call somebody else and get my entire life experience blueprint distilled into a choice, an aesthetic and choice structure and like, you know, approach. And so like, it's good for me too. Like I'm not, it works for me as a person. And also it gives me freedom because, you know, why would you like have a really like extensive record collection, extensive taste in music, extensive history across music, and like as a musician be the biggest fan you could possibly be, so much of a fan, so like you've decided to just make your whole life music. It's like you can't be much more of a fan than that. And
absolutely,
what, just do one genre? No
way, no,
like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how people get bored out of their mind. Like 30 years later, just one genre. Top myself, mate. Like I can't do that. Like I need to do this. It's like it serves my purpose and the music I adore and the people that make it and the legacy that then gets paid forward to the kids to go, hey, people that look a bit like me do this still. You know, like and show how connected things are so that people don't divorce rock and roll from blackness when Black women invented it.
Black women founded it. They founded it. You know,
it's like
Sister Rosetta, Mamie Smith, Bessie Smith, Laverne Baker, Nina. I mean, they created it.
They created it. And people go, how? And I'm like, think about it. Think about shredding, what it's like. It's blues playing at pace. Where did that pace come from? I don't know. Maybe the church. Maybe you take this blues bending and then run with it. So if we're taking like, wasn't that Sister Rosetta Tharpe's entire background. Didn't she grow up from 6 years old playing church music, then play blues music, then speed it up with her church music way before anything else? She even like coined the term rock and roll in her song That's All. People had mentioned rock and roll before, but not in this particular definition. So there are references to the word rock and roll before, but it had a different meaning. This pertaining to music was That's All. And that's what, 36?
1936.
Early. It's early.
Almost 100 years ago, 90 years ago. I don't do math. I'm a music person, but that.
87 years ago, odd. Yeah. It's like, so you have like all of this, like, and that's just the guitar playing, that idea of like, she was like one of the very first to use heavy distortion. And then you take the way she plays it. No one was using that heavy distortion before her. And so you're really like what else do you have? You've got the kind of pace and the rhythm of rock and roll. You've got the guitar aesthetic of rock and roll. And then you've got the wailing voice. Again, sounds a bit churchy to me, this kind of like broken up voice. Like, it's like, it's all there. And all of these women were parts of tweaking and defining the genre. But so much of it came from Sister Rosetta herself. Like, if we did like a kind of Man in the High Castle thing, and like, but if we, instead of if the Nazis won, it's like if Sister Rosetta Tharpe didn't exist, like I'd be very interested to see what we lost, because she wouldn't discover Little Richard. And then you think of like the princes of the world, the Childish Gambinos of the world, like,
and then you fast forward to
happen, the Parliament Funkadelics of the world that don't happen. Like, there's so much that doesn't happen, even outside of what is termed explicitly rock and roll. Like,
the British invasion wouldn't have happened.
No way.
Had she not have gone to that train station?
No way would have that happened. No way. And so, like it's almost terrifying to imagine not having her. So I'm like, with that in mind, we should probably give her flowers and know who she is, because we owe way more to her than we could ever imagine.
Ever imagine. And so for people who aren't familiar with her music, who are watching this, young people, specifically, who, find music on YouTube or Spotify or however people are listening to music, what would you suggest that they do to start? Like, would you start with Sister Rosetta?
Yeah, do you know what? Like, so I think those recordings, you can find them on YouTube, of her playing in the Manchester train station. I think the number of people I've talked to who refer to those recordings and that concert, and because it tells a lot about the story. One, she's already abroad, guys.
Right?
So there's not like, oh, she was little known in a corner somewhere. It's like, she's already across the water. So we've got an idea of how important she is. And there's a decent crowd there, and it's being filmed. So there's we can extrapolate the trend further with that to say, okay, this is interesting because, like, she's an international artist. She draws a crowd. Like, they're archiving it in full recognition of how important it is.
Yeah.
And from that point, you get an idea that this is a story that needs to be told. This is a person who is relevant. And then maybe go back to songs like That's All and go, did you say what I thought you said? What? Sorry, what day is, to really kind of get into like the discography, but also things like in the movie we were performing in Club Handy, and Club Handy was this famous venue in the Chitlin circuit, but like there were venues that had greater or lesser renown, and this was like one of the places to be on the circuit, and people would travel miles, states, to come and see people play specifically at her night. So in the movie, we are watching Sister Rosetta's night, in which she puts on people who will become rock and roll. Like,
Yes.
and they're all influenced by her. Every single person in that room, the BBs, obviously Elvis, Little Richard, who she's showcasing, who's that her little, you know, ingenue boy.
Yeah.
You know, like, she's the matriarch of
Mhm.
this scene. And she puts on shows, and on her piano, the piano player is her partner. And so, like, I tried to give a bit of flirt. I was like, I need to get gayer than I am. And like, because I was like, I can't be giving straight because it won't work. I can't be giving my straight energy. So I was like, right. So we practice flirt all the time. I was like, come on, I can't look at you like this isn't a thing, okay?
Right.
We need to be gay. So like, but there's all of this, it's all very just like sumptuous. The environment's very sumptuous. And
Yes.
so I think like the movie does a really great job of at least giving you an idea of what it would be like to be in a room where BB King and Elvis go and see Sister Rosetta, and they go, oh, look who that is. It's Little Richard, and this is his first time, like proper showcasing to it on the scene kind of thing, you know, or you know, they've been putting you around other parts of the circuit, but this is like the big show, the big showcase. Those things are like, they're really important to be able to imagine, and because of the time, there wasn't footage of things like that.
Right.
So
And
that was
the
kind of
time
part
machine,
of the purpose of it.
unfortunately.
Well, exactly, you know. So
Yeah.
part of the purpose becomes we're able to create this thing that you'd never be able, like you'd have to really extend your imagination to understand. And so, yeah, looking into the background of Cup Handy, like to think of all the people that went there, like everyone that claims that they were there at the beginning of rock and roll. Like you always hear people like Ike Turner go, I was there, but they were all going to Club Handy. That's what everybody was going. And so yeah, it's so interesting. But if you want to check out Sister Rosetta, then yeah, like
Thank you. I learned something just now. I'm gonna go check it out because
yeah.
that's amazing. Switching gears just a little bit, I fangirled out on you before we started this interview because to me you're such an inspiration. On your most recent album, Stand for Yourself, the album opener, Barely Alive, explores the experience of being a token or other. You were talking about this earlier in the interview, and ineffectively minimizing yourself to fit in where you grew up, only to lose your sense of self and become further isolated. As a brown woman, this is an experience I've had. I grew up in the South. Many people have had this experience on different levels. What advice would you give to anyone who is going through this experience now?
I suppose step one. So kind of each song on the record is subtly about two things. Like Dancing Away in Tears sounds like just like a breakup song, but actually it's about it's a boundary song.
Mm.
So you've outgrown something and you've outgrown a paradigm. And so like if you are minimizing yourself, and this is a tough thing to say, but it's the truth. Like some people might never outgrow minimizing themselves. Some people may be profoundly comfortable being nothing. Like, because being something is a bit of cardio. And some people don't like cardio. I really struggle. I'm fast twitch. Like, don't talk to me. Like, so like I get it. But also, so sometimes so for people that like are like, okay, you have to reach a point of being kind of sick of it. And that's just the reality of it. At some point, you just be like, God, like everyone gets to just do them and I don't. Like we all like to kind of play around with like our appearance, like I do. Like, but like at the core of yourself, the bit right at the very center of it, No, we don't. It's not fun. And so, like, it's like the first rule of AA: admit you've got a problem. And even AA, as kind as they are dealing with people that are addicted, they can't even start with you, babe, if you can't admit to yourself that you're done. And so, like, I always say to people all the time, whatever it is, I'll be like, first rule of AA, love, I'm sorry. Admit you got a problem.
Yeah.
Like,
no, that's good advice.
Got a problem is what I'd say. Step one, admit you've got a problem. Step two, then it's time to do a diagnostic of said problem.
Yeah.
And sometimes the thing that makes you have to pivot is the programming of cognitive bias in your environment. So go to the Harvard implicit bias test and actually take an implicit bias test. Find out what your biases are. And then at least you can police those. So all the programming that's going in to via your peripheral vision, via all the stuff that you can't reason through your prefrontal cortex, all the stuff that just gets absorbed, you can at least start going, oh, that's what's getting absorbed. Oh, I can't be having that. Because I think that's part of this sense of isolation and this sense of not being able to be self. It's environmental. And sometimes it's circle and you just need a whole other group of friends. So part of the diagnostic can be, you need better friends, babe. I'm sorry. They suck, like every single one of them. Yeah. And you might need to do a big chop. And I'm talking like black hair language right now, which is like you relax your hair 50 times and it's like straight bit and then like full 4C curl at the bottom. And you're like, I'm never going to be able to save this hot mess. So you just big chop the whole thing. It's big chop time.
Big chop time.
The life scissors need to come out.
The life scissors.
And just get rid of people that when you're done being with, like, in their energy, that you feel drained or you feel shit about yourself. You know, like it's like everything is, but it's boundaries. That's what that ends up being. So you meet people and you decide how they make you feel, and that then denotes on what ring of or tier of your social structure they have access to. You seem perfectly fine. You can go on tier 3. Oh, you're really great. You can be on tier 1, right around my tummy. And like, like, oh, I don't know about you. You can go on tier 8 out there. Like, I still have to interact with all these humans, but you just don't get to permeate. And so it's a boundaries thing. Like, step 1 is realizing that it's okay to have boundaries. At all. Realizing you've got a problem and then realizing that you're able to exert boundaries to rectify that problem. But a lot of people that feel super isolated are so bowing and curtsying and shucking and jiving that you don't realize that you're allowed to not do that because it's what you did to feel safe. But you don't feel safe. No one's going to thank you. Exactly. Everyone's going to say, that's bare minimum, mate. Your complete overcompensation to make everyone else feel comfortable is bare minimum of what's expected. And then people will only ask more on top of your maximum effort. So never give them 100. Dial it back. Like, you're going to be exhausted. You can't live like this. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah. Again, audience, this is why Yola is my hero and inspiration, and she will be yours. In addition to all the music and everything else. So your folks sent over your most recent bio, and I want to read a line from your bio. Her sonic mix of symphonic soul and classic pop traced a musical thread to her most eclectic musical inspirations and declared that it is only when we stand for ourselves and acknowledge our complexity that we can truly be alive. To me, this is the perfect sentence describing why music is the most important art form, because I think everything that we're talking about is, comes through in your music. But how do you define being truly alive? Like, where do you feel the most alive?
Free.
Yeah,
like creatively free. Just in my life process, like I'm kind of on a bit of a break right now, and I'm able, I want to go and meet someone and go and eat some food in said city, wherever I'm going to go. I ain't going to tell you. Like, not record. Oh, I would have already been there by the time this goes out, so it's all right. But like, you know, let's say I want to hop on a plane, you know, to wherever, New York, let's just say it's somewhere arbitrary. And, you know, like, I can go and do that. Like, the freedom of not having as much bill anxiety as what I grew up with. Like,
most of us
most
have
people on earth have had bill anxiety.
Yeah.
The majority of people on earth have had anxiety about paying bills. And it's also, it's kind of weird that maybe some of the people that we hold in highest regard musically haven't. You're talking about my life, but you've never had bill anxiety. We all have. Like, even people that I would never have anything else in common with, people that stormed the Capitol had bill anxiety. I have nothing in common with those people.
Nothing. Exactly. Right.
It's insane. But this is the reality of it. It's like the freedom to be like, not like, to be able to do my job is like, it's a profound privilege. Don't get me wrong, but also like that freedom allows me to be creative. And so I noticed the difference between, you know, being poor, which wasn't desperately long ago, and like, it really wasn't. And like how that stifles your ability to be creative, and then being able to afford to be creative in an unencumbered way. And like, there's such a gulf of difference.
You're not worried about where your next meal is coming from or how you're going to pay your rent, or
closing the curtains because you think the bailiffs are going to come around, so you're not home. Like that stifles your ability to have your best ideas. And I literally neurologically felt the difference when that wasn't a problem. Like, really, it's like when my mother died and we had to sell the place, and I got a bit of that, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm actually going to be able to build something here. But that was it. I had some, like, I worked years and years as a top line writer. I had a few little pop songs that kind of popped off around the same time, and I was like, I think I can start something, and my brain just opened. It was like trepanning. And so I'm like, so people will talk about this all the time. And I'm like, oh yeah, that person's amazing. How rich are they? Okay.
Right.
I'm like, no, they did the stuff. They did the work. Like, yes. But like, I just want to put like an asterisk next. It wasn't as hard as it could have been.
Sure.
Because most people on earth have some form of bill anxiety.
Right.
And so freedom in that way, like, but also just environmentally free, like being in an environment that wants me to win.
Yes.
You know, how many times I've been in environments where people have really struggled to see me win. It's a lot. That whole kind of society struggling to see dark-skinned plus-size women win.
Yeah.
Like, people don't really talk about sizeism that much, but like,
well, because they don't even notice that you're even there. They totally, like, you disappear into the background.
Yeah. Like,
unless you're wearing like something that is, you know, like very little, or, you know, but they completely
it's erasure. It's the idea of like, you should be erased. And that assumption that, you know, if you're thin, therefore you must know something more about life. And so like, that's kind of sizeism.
That is maddening.
It's maddening. Anyone who's plus knows how infuriating it is. Like, you know, like, even like, I go to the gym quite a lot, and I've had people like swear that they have the answer to like what I'm doing with my body and like being out.
But the reality of it is you're gorgeous and you're beautiful.
Yeah, but
and you're
I mean,
healthy,
like, I had some pain and I was undoing said pain. And I'm like, this wasn't like a vanity trip of any situation, but that kind of idea of like, you know, how we minimize plus people. So my idea of like real freedom is being in environments that aren't, you know, colorist, aren't sizist, aren't sexist. It's basically an Afro punk poster.
Well, so that's going to be like maybe the third or fourth time you're inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when you do your Afro Punks project one day. But
like, yeah, look, just stood next to the poster going, I don't want any of this.
yeah,
But yeah, that's what freedom is. Again, because then when you're in an environment where people are just like, you're human and I'm actually judging you on the quality of your character as opposed to any weird biases that I have, then again, you're feeling more free to create. And really, I feel most free when I'm creating. And so, yeah, like I just want to be in environments that allow me to do that. And other people seem to like me creating. So it isn't selfish.
no, it's not selfish. This world needs you. We need you
Thanks.
to be creative.
Thanks.
And I mentioned that you are going to be in my opinion, a multi-inducted Rock Hall inductee one day, but you just are. I don't have any say over that. That's just my opinion, but you will be here one day. It takes 25 years from the release of your first. So you've worked and performed with some other Rock Hall inductees, Dolly Parton, Mavis Staples. Any words of advice that they gave you, or any good stories or anecdotes that you learned from them?
Oh, goodness. Like, I feel like Mavis, she has a radar like no other.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she is probably one of the most beloved people in music. Like, everywhere she goes, just like oozing love, and everyone's just like, I adore you. I haven't even spoke to you yet, but I just adore you. Mm-hmm. And so like, she really does have that energy, but she's also kind of like arch discerning. And I think I noticed that about her, that like her radar is not to be trifled with. And if she's like, I don't know about that person, she's right.
She's right.
She's 100% right. Yeah. And so like, just the kind of like honing your radar and trusting in your radar. I think my entire like business strategy is my radar now.
Is that you think that comes from intuition? Is that heart? Yeah. Is that gut? Is that brain? Is it everything?
It's all of it. And I suppose getting to a point where you've at least admitted to yourself, if you don't know the entirety of yourself, because I think that's a journey until you're dead, but like, like, it's like, what pisses you off and what you like, and like, or at least you at the core of you do, and just being in concert with knowing that, then just telling the truth to yourself. It's the hardest thing ever when you meet someone new. If you need like, to work with a new stylist, for example, and you meet them and you're going to have to be naked in front of this person.
So is that how that works? Yeah. I didn't know that. Oh my. Okay. All right. Wow. Secrets of the trade.
Like, you're going to be trying stuff on, like, but also you're going to be talking about things that you like. You're going to be, hopefully, as time goes on, you're going to be trying to kind of just craft something that feels meaningful to you, that feels fun, because fashion's supposed to be fun, guys. Right. Enjoy yourself. It's another way of expressing yourself. And like, if we can find the fun in the things that could double as vain, then at least it's got, some meaning, something good about it. And so you want someone who is really in concert with that, and not like, oh, I don't know, should you really wear that? Or like, oh, I don't know. Or like, dresses you in a potato sack or something. Like, you need people who really are, on that kind of level with you. But when you've just met someone, like, how do you know? Other than the instinct that all humans are born with, that we gradually over our life get used to talking ourselves out of paying attention to. And like I suppose getting back in line with that, because I feel like I got talked out of it in a number of scenarios in my life, and I talked myself back into it over some years. And she right, I don't know what to say.
No, yes, and that's why I connect, and I think other people connect with your music, is because it does come from that place, and that's desperately where people are trying to be, and you found it.
That's kind of the song stand for myself. That's the whole function of it. it's literally talking back to the barely alive version of myself going, I get it. Like when you're here, like it's clear as day. Once you've got some decent boundaries, you've got a good environment, you trust in the core of yourself, you allow yourself some frivolous joy, you don't let like any other paradigms guide what your path is going to be. Oh, you should be doing this. Oh, you're this age, you should be doing, like, just screw all of that. Who are you?
Who are you? Yes, yes. So the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is lucky because we're getting a guitar from you to put in our Right Here, Right Now exhibit, which is our exhibit that celebrates current artists. So we have fans from all over the world that come here. What do you want people to know when they walk up and see your guitar in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
So I want them to know that one, the reason I chose it is because it's a slightly altered version. It's not exactly identical to Sister Rosetta Tharpe's famous 63 Les Paul Custom. Now you say Les Paul Custom? Are you sure it's not an SG? I'd be like, here's the caveat to the situation. Like, so Les Paul developed this SG model, but it didn't call it SG. At the time, it was a Les Paul Custom. Well, it was a custom for Sister Rosetta, but that was a Les Paul body type. Then he decided he wasn't into it a little. He's like, I feel like I want to go in a different direction. So he did, and they called that SG, which stands for Standard Guitar, would you believe? And so, like, I'd like people to know that this was in a specific era before SG, but obviously very much in the electric guitar era. And so it's early for its type. Number one. Two, the color and the kind of double pickup arrangement is peak Sister Rosetta. They're just like uncovered. I think they're uncovered humbuckers or something in this. So, but that double kind of lined pickup that you see there, that is peak Sister Rosetta. And so that's the inspiration behind choosing this guitar.
That's beautiful. And I really just have one more question for you.
Okay.
You've been so gracious with your time. So what's next for you? I mean, what's coming to 2023?
So I've got some things, like obviously Grammy week's coming up. It would have probably already happened by the time this comes out.
7 Grammy nominations.
Hopefully the soundtrack gets something and I get to like actually win one of these things. It's like being like, I'm nominated. So yeah, fingers crossed about that. We've got NAACP awards coming. Fingers crossed about that. Then we've got the Oscars coming. Fingers crossed about that. Lots of fingers crossing. Then I've got festivals coming up in the summer. Of course, I'm writing songs. Finally. So here's the deal, guys. You can't have your cake and eat it. I'm either going to be touring hard. You're like, come here, come there. Do you want an album or not? Or do you want a single? Or do you want like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I need to write stuff. And so you get one or the other. So you choose. Like, I take a break to do the stuff, and then you get the thing, or I stay on the road and you get nothing. So so the idea is to try and I'll be out in some festivals and some things, and like, you know, this year, like I'll find little things to do so I'm not completely abandoning everyone out in the streets here. But the plan is to be writing and to be writing a lot and to try and put something down, get it out there.
Well, we can't wait for both touring and new music and listening to all of your music. And just thank you. Just thank you for being authentic and for the messages that you share with the world. And I just thank you. You're Yola. Hey, we love you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much. Really fun.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.